Okay, Sebastian, as you know, you have 15 minutes to present. After the presentation, you'll have a seat and the commission will ask you questions. You may start now.
Okay, good afternoon, the commission and the audience. I'm going to present you my piece of research, which is called The Influence of Target Language Spoken Exposure on the Students' Basic Interpersonal Communicative Skills. Okay, in order to contextualize you, it is important to mention that this study was carried out in a public subsidized school in Maipú district. I was assigned to an 8th grade, which had 36 students. The issue that caught my attention was the fact that the students told to translate several pieces of text from L1 to L2 and vice versa. Okay, in order to give you a clearer perspective on my piece of research, there are key concepts. The first one, as was defined as Abe et al., has relation with communicative skills. Communicative skills refer to the ability of the individual to participate in an interactive sequence of speech acts with a communicative intent. Having said that, it is important to define communicative competence. As Hines, as cited in Brown, differentiated two different communicative competence. The first one is COLE, which deals mostly with formal academic learning, that is to say, with terms of firm, accuracy, and linguistic elements. Whereas BIGS, which is the focus of my study, have relation with using L2 in daily life situations, that is to say, the day-to-day language needed to interact socially, paying no attention to form, accuracy, or linguistic elements. Having mentioned this, my purpose statement is described as follows. To determine how target language spoken exposure affects 8th graders, the students' basic communicative skills within an EFL context in a public subsidized school in Maipú district. The research questions is the following. How does target language spoken exposure affect students' BIGS within an EFL context? Okay, having mentioned this, it is important to consider this qualitative research with a critical paradigm proposed by Burns and 2010, in which a four-step procedure is described as follows. The first step of critical paradigm has relation with identification of students' proficiency level in terms of their BIGS. The second one has relation with action, in this case, to identify by which strategies target language spoken exposure may affect students' BIGS. The third one is to determine the effect of target language spoken exposure has on students' BIG. And the final is a reflection process, basically to analyze the whole process of identification, application, and effect of students' BIG. Having said that, my research assumptions are the following. The action providing learners with target language spoken exposure within the classroom will affect their BIGS in certain context. The second one is related with speaking skills within the classroom will improve students' ability to communicate in certain context. Okay, having established the research question assumptions and objectives, the data collection materials are described as follows. In order to have a detailed, concise, clear notion of the observed phenomena, I decided to use in the first step a diagnosis test, which was taken by the tutor teacher, and field notes. The action consisted on creating an intervention at the light of enhancing students' proficiency level regarding their BIGS. The third one as field notes and observations in order to have a perspective, a detailed perspective regarding the students' behavior. The final one, which is reflection, as relation with a focus group and a semi-structured interview. The interviews with the tutor teacher in order to have a perspective, an authorized learning perspective regarding the whole process. Okay. In order to ensure trustworthiness, I consider the following aspects. Transferability. I would say that in my piece of research fulfills transferability because their findings can be applied in other contexts as soon as the other context fulfills certain conditions. That is to say, students' proficiency level on the teaching technique, which in this case is translation. Also, the study is dependable in order to, as soon as there is a careful data description of data, which was gathered into interpretation matrices and also triangulation matrices as well. Confirmability. This piece of research can be confirmed as soon as the findings are subject to be modified by an external auditor. And finally, we have credibility. This one refers to the data collected for a long enough period of time, which basically ensured a natural behavior of participants. Okay, regarding the application of instruments, field notes and observation were purposefully taken at the beginning of the internship in order to have an idea of what worth investigating issue could emerge. Also, where the observation records and the observations were taken before and after the action plan, the action step, and in the final process. I consider a focus group in order to have a learner's perspective regarding the whole process. Moreover, I consider an interview with the tutor teacher in order to have a learning perspective regarding the whole process that I was part of. Okay, regarding the data analysis procedure, in the first step of the action research process, two categories emerged. The first one is lack of oral performance and poor listening development. I consider those categories in relation with the diagnosis test and the observations that I took. The diagnosis test was mostly focused on translating sentences from L2 to L1 and vice versa, and also was noticeable that the students' skills in terms of oral and written were not considered at all. As you can see, the intervention have no categories because it's a design of what I was going to do in the internship in order to improve and enhance students' proficiency level. In the observation step, they have listening skills and oral performance. Those categories emerge from field notes before and after the action step, which is the intervention step. And in the final process, which is reflection, they have two categories that are related with L2 spoken exposure and learning strategies and resources, were taken through field notes, focus group, and an interview with the tutor. Okay, in order to establish conclusions, I would say that the assumptions were partially fulfilled. Basically, because students, in order to communicate properly, both listening and speaking skills must be developed. Therefore, the action step consider the enhancements of those skills. As limitations, I would say that the 10 constraints, basically I couldn't do as much as I wanted to do because of learners' proficiency level. They have been taught by translating for 2 years, and that can be considered as a limitation. Regarding the metacognition part of this piece of research, I was assigned to the following learning objective. Basically consists on developing writing skills in students, also make them use teaching resources, dictionary, and also with guidance from the teacher in this case. As well as an emphasis on vocabulary. In order to accomplish this learning objective, I will aim at providing students with innovative teaching resources. Also, the material they can work with must be suitable and appropriate according to their level and age. Also, furthermore, I will consider scaffolding, because scaffolding is a gradual process of accomplishing learning objectives, which is crucial in terms of developing writing. And also, I consider guided writing in terms of being a guidance for students. Regarding the strengths, weaknesses, and challenges, as a strength, I consider a careful selection of materials to work with learners that must be according to their age. And also, I consider myself as a committed person, as a strong will in order to achieve those objectives. Those characteristics are needed. Weaknesses. Basically, I tend to frustrate as soon as the results do not fulfill my original expectations. As a challenge, I would say that I must be able to encourage learners to participate actively during the classes. My references.
Thank you, sir.